Hey Dream Drivers, welcome to episode 402 of the Dreams and Drive podcast. Super excited for today's episode. Before we get into it, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Staying hydrated should be one of your biggest priorities. That's why smart water is always on my list. As a busy mom and always on the go, I love how easy it is to hold smart water and how it is just the right accessory for my daily outfits. With days in mind that usually involve a lot of overthinking, smart water provides a refreshing change of pace and allows me not to have to think too much. Plus, the taste is great too. Smart water has this pure, crisp taste with added electrolytes, and I love it. Life's full of choices. Smart water is a simple one. Visit drinksmartwater.com to learn more. Hey Dream Drivers, so I am going to be talking about a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, interviewing. We're going to be talking about growing in your career, and I want to center this episode on 11 ways to rock your next job interview. And this was actually inspired by a post that I put on LinkedIn maybe about 10 years ago when I was just graduating from college. I think it probably was like 1 year out of college. And I wrote this post on LinkedIn that was actually 10 ways to rock your next job interview. And it went quote unquote viral. And at the time viral, I mean like tens of thousands of views. I got all these like followers on LinkedIn. And it was the beginning of me stepping into a period where I was like, dang, Rainy, you know something, let's share your expertise. So I decided to look at that post. So much of that stuff is outdated. A lot of the stuff that I was saying, I was like, girl, what? But there was some solid stuff in there. So I decided to kind of revamp it 2024 style and update it with some tips from a point of view of having experience, so much more experience interviewing for jobs, so much more experience interviewing people to work under me, and just experience Dreams and Drive and interviewing in that capacity as well. So hopefully you all enjoy the tips I'm going to share today. And hopefully you can share this episode with a friend who you think just needs some encouragement, some inspired interviewing, help, whatever that is. This is going to be a really great episode for anyone who just wants some practical tips that you can use for any job interview you have coming up. And I'm telling you, if you listen to even a few of these, you'll walk away feeling so much more confident, ready, prepared, and also leaving a lasting impression on the interviewer, which is what we all want to do. Before we get into today's episode, though, please make sure you're following Dreams and Drive on social media. You can find us on all the platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We're at Dreams and Drive. And also, if you want to join our email newsletter, The Keys, and get weekly email updates delivered right to your inbox, just go to dreamsanddrive.com/join. That's dreamsanddrive.com/join. I am actually thinking about moving to Substack and kind of doing the newsletter in that way. So we'll see in the next coming weeks. But whatever I end up doing, make sure you're on the newsletter, because if you're not on that list, then you won't get any of the updates and all the cool stuff that we're doing. Also, quick shout out to a longtime listener, Susan. Last week, I was just sitting down in the morning, looking at my emails, and I saw I had like all these different products on my website that were saying out of stock, out of stock, out of stock. And I'm like, wait, did somebody order something? And Susan, I just appreciate you. You've ordered so much in the past. And to have a listener randomly order, like I haven't promoted the shop, I should say. And just to have her go in and order and support me in that way, it really does mean a lot. I still have like very limited items on the website. If you guys want to go to dreamsanddrive.com/shop and see what I have there, feel free to go ahead and do it. I always appreciate the love. So let's get into these tips, 11 ways to rock your next job interview. I'm going to try to make them as to the point as possible. Get a notebook out, write them down. I'll probably share these on social media as well. But let's get to the first one. Number 1, make sure your intro is on point and you want to have your elevator pitch ready to go. I say this because a lot of interviewers will start off an interview saying, hey, tell me about yourself, right? That's a very easy way for interviewers to be able to just kind of, in one little whatever, however long you want to do it, 30 seconds, a minute, you should be able to clearly articulate who you are, what you do, and what you want to get out of any role. I like to approach it in different ways. I think you can I like to start with my one word, and that's something that my previous coach, Rich Keller, helped me come up with. You guys heard that on episode 199 of the podcast, where he helped me get to my one word, which is storyteller. I like to use that one word. Hey, I've always imagined I like to call myself a storyteller, and let me tell you a quick story about how that's come to fruition or why that makes sense. And here's the trick. You want to make sure that story's in the context of the world in which you're telling it. So if I'm applying for a media marketing job, storytelling is going to make sense, because if I want to show to the interviewer that that's who I am, that's the core of who I am, and this thematic of storytelling is weaved throughout my entire career journey. I might say, I've been a storyteller my entire life. I had a media job, and I thought, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's one way to go about it. And also your elevator pitch should really clearly tell who you are, right? It should tell what you excel at, your strengths, and then where you want to go. And I say that because in the beginning of an interview, it's a good thing for your interviewer to understand why you are even looking for a job. So being able to clearly articulate, as a storyteller, I'm looking for the next role that can help me, blah, 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 connected to whatever that job is. And that's going to clearly help your interviewer have a lasting memory of who you are and why you are a good fit for the role. Remember, interviewers are trying to find the best candidates to make their lives easier. So help them do that. Number 2, make sure you have some kind of positive social media or online presence before you get into the interview. Let me tell you, 9 times out of 10, somebody's Googling you, they're LinkedIning you, they're social mediaing you. So on that day of your interview, don't post crazy stuff on your stories. And then, just try to make sure that your professional presence online is cleaned up to your best extent. I'm not saying that you can't be yourself online, but if you know that you have, very, very left-wing views or whatever that is, like, I would say, especially around the time of your interview, anything that's live, anything that's public facing, make sure that's as professional, or anything that you have there is something that you can clearly talk to if needed. I think so many of us are seeing social media as a way to be free, freedom of expression, definitely, but you have to remember that you're also curating an online presence. So make sure that online presence is one that you don't care who sees it when they see it, and it also can clearly reflect what you want and that elevator pitch that you just told the interviewer from our first tip. Number 3, practice answers to questions, specifically scenario-based questions and personality-based questions. And I say that because based on your industry, there are probably sample questions that you're always going to get asked, right? Come prepared with a few, and practice answering them. I say that because I think, there's going to be questions where people may come to you and they say, hey, what would you do in XX situation? Or tell me about a time when. These are standard interview questions that you'll probably get asked no matter what. Have some quick blanket answers. Write them down. Have something that you're constantly saying. So for me, tell me about a time when you failed and how you had to pivot, right? You might talk about a time that you were running late on a job and it was blah, 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 and how you went about solving that problem, or how you held yourself accountable and had to face the consequences. These are things that I think a lot of people don't realize, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you interview. Practice answering questions. If you're going on multiple interviews, maybe write down the questions that you get asked a lot, and then figure out how you can clearly come up with answers that sound fresh each time. But also remember, here's a key thing: don't overdo it. I sometimes have been in interviews where the person that I'm interviewing just talks too much. You have to remember there's somebody on the other end of that interview, and they're asking you questions so that they can assess whether you'd be a good fit for the role. So give them enough information, but not too much, so much so that they get tired, that they're thinking about lunch while talking to you. You want to make sure you're engaged and you're staying engaged throughout the entire conversation. Hey Dream Drivers, if you're like me, you know the struggle of dealing with a wild child who just won't keep their diaper on. That's why I'm excited to share my favorite Pampers Cruisers 360, the ultimate baby-proof diaper for your little explorer. Pampers Cruisers 360 features a 360-degree stretchy waistband instead of the usual tabs. This unique design helps prevent your baby from removing their diaper, which means no more unexpected messes. And trust me, this is a game changer. One of the best parts, Pampers Cruisers 360 offers up to 100% leak-proof protection with a gap-free fit no matter how your baby moves. It's super easy to remove too. Just rip the sides, roll it up with a disposal tape on the back, and you're good to go. Try Pampers Cruisers 360 with the new Pampers Free and Gentle wipes for healthy baby skin. They're made from 100% plant-based cloth that grips the mess, with Free and Gentle mess meets its match. Add Pampers Cruisers 360 and Free and Gentle wipes to your cart or pick them up at your local grocery or big box store. Say goodbye to messes and hello to more fun with Pampers. Remember, for trusted protection, trust Pampers, the #1 pediatrician recommended brand. This is what you do when your love of the sneaker game has you chasing the limited editions, the classics, and the real ones. You go to eBay. There you'll find the one again and again. The latest sneaker drop you can't stop thinking about, one-of-a-kind streetwear you're dying to wear, and fresh collabs you didn't even know you needed. But of course, your appetite goes beyond what's on your feet. On eBay, you'll feast your eyes on a full menu of hard-to-finds. Start with some fresh kicks, then fall in love with a pair of 90s denim or that vintage leather jacket to style them perfectly. Then make a designer collab your main course, the cherry on top, a timeless watch, or an iconic rare handbag, and the jewelry of your dreams, all expertly authenticated. Yeah, eBay. It's the place for new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion. eBay. Things people love. This episode of Dreams and Drive is brought to you by McDonald's. Fashion loves Black style, but Black designers don't always get their shine. That's why McDonald's has partnered with 5 rising Black designers and 5 industry insiders to help change more than clothes. The designers have hit culture's biggest red carpets and runways and connected with fashion industry insiders for ongoing career-changing mentorships, all while building their brands and bringing along fans like you. Plus, there's so much more to come. Want to see what's happening with these designers on the come up? Follow their journey on Instagram at WeAreGolden. The main thing is that you want your interviewer to remember what you said and not have to sort through their memory's clutter to remember the sound bites that might make or break their decision to hire you or bring you back for a second interview. Number 4, this one should be a no-brainer. Do your research about the position or company. There have been so many times that I interview people and they know nothing about the job. They know nothing about the company. They haven't even tried. And this is a major red flag. If you haven't even taken the time to research the company, then I'm going to assume that you're not detail oriented, that you don't really care about this, and I'm not going to take you seriously. So don't let that interviewer ever have that come to mind about you. Do your research. Even if you don't know as much as you want to, have a solid understanding of what your company does, what the role that you are applying for, how that connects to the company's overall bottom line. People like to understand that you understand how your role helps the company makes money or is part of the company's economic engine in some way. So being able to understand that will help definitely set you apart, and it'll help you also come to the interview armed and confident. Number 5, let your personality shine, but don't be afraid to let your truth shine as well. I say that because I think a lot of times in interviews, people are afraid to be themselves. People work with people that they like, so you want to make sure that you are coming off as genuine, you're coming off as your true self, and you are not hiding parts of yourself that if you were hired and those things came out, you would not feel comfortable. And I say that because let me give you an example.
With the $5 meal deal at McDonald's, 5 hits different. 5 gets you a McDouble or a McChicken and a small fry and a small drink and a 4-piece McNuggets. 5 gets you more at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary. For limited time only. You got 5 on it? With the $5 meal deal at McDonald's, you about to eat. your choice of a tender, juicy McChicken or a hot, cheesy McDouble sandwich and a crispy 4-piece McNuggets and a small fries and a small drink for just $5.
Money.
Woo! 5 gets you more at McDonald's. Prices and participation may vary. For limited time only.
This week's episode of Dreams and Drive is brought to you by Smart Water. So this summer, I have a lot of goals, and getting out and staying active is number one. But if you want to be active, you got to stay hydrated, and that's where Smart Water comes in. I love how complimentary Smart Water is to my daily routine. It fits right in my baby bag, it's easy to put in the car bottle holder, and just looks good if I'm holding it in my hand or my daily walks with the kids. When it comes to living my life, there's a lot to overthink. What's for lunch? Who's getting the kids? Who do I need to reach out to for interviews? What's for dinner? But at least I don't have to overthink my water. And look, later today, I know I'm going to have to take that little one out for his daily ATV ride and walk around the block. With this pure, crisp taste and added electrolytes, I know that we'll all stay hydrated for our summer excursions, and the taste will be on point too. Smart Water provides a refreshing change of pace, a moment of clarity with a simple choice of hydrating. And at this stage in my life, that is super important. Life's full of choices. Smart Water is a simple one. Visit drinksmartwater.com to learn more. When I was interviewing for my job, one of the things that I kind of debated was, should I tell them that I'm a mother? I was newly 7 months, and my son was 7 months at the time I was interviewing for the job. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to tell them that I'm a new mom. And I think it was important for me to say that because I realized I could not be on a team with people who did not value that I was a new mom or that would not be able to support me in this. I needed to work at a company that embraced mothers and where I could feel supported. And by me revealing that to the people that were interviewing me, it was very, very helpful because they were like, oh, we have a mothers group. Oh, this company is very good at this. Here are some of the benefits, blah, 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 blah. And that was also helpful because now I'm still here almost 3.5 years later, and being able to come to work every day with my true self and not have to hide that I have kids is a game changer. And I don't think I could ever go backwards. And I sometimes feel bad for people who feel like they can't be their true selves at their careers, in their jobs. And I would just kind of say, don't be afraid to let your truth shine, because just as much as you want that job, you want to make sure that that job is a place where you will feel comfortable and supported. And I think that's a huge, huge part of the interviewing process on both ends. And by letting your personality shine, if you're a little quirky, let that come into the interview. If you have a specific skill set, if you have a specific interest, when asked about what are your passions or interests, I think people want to work with, I know, we want to work with well-rounded individuals, people who have passions outside of work, because that passion can also bleed into what you do at work. So don't be afraid to share all those things, because those can be the things that can really set you apart. And remember, you're trying to make yourself memorable to the person that is interviewing you so that you can get that next round, so that you can continue to showcase your value. And this is just one way that you can do that. All right, let's jump into number 6. Nail that sample project, even if you don't 100% know what you're doing. And I say that because a lot of times I know for marketing jobs that I'm in, you might have a sample project. I had to do a sample RFP response. So that's basically a sample request for proposal where you're responding to a brief and you're creating some kind of marketing proposal presentation based on a client's needs. And I remember when I first got this presentation, I didn't really know what I was doing. You have a limited time period. I was like, wait, what? But I realized I took a step back and I said, hey, you might not know specifically how this company does it, but you know how to problem solve. You know how to answer questions. You know how to design things. You know how to market and sell. Put all those things together and do your best and show off your skills, because I'm pretty sure, and now that I've been on the other side of the equation, It's not about how perfect you are, but it's about your approach. And interviewers are looking at your approach to these samples projects. Are you answering the questions well? Are you detailed oriented? Do you know about the company? Do you understand the industry speak? Those are the things that you really want to highlight, even if you aren't sure about how to do it in the exact template of the company that you're interviewing for. This is another way for you to really showcase your skills and also just showcase your strengths and how you show up and your understanding of the industry, etc., etc. How you approach it and your ability to problem solve and research will always be important for any role. Number 7, we haven't talked about it yet, but this is the very important one. Relax. Interviewers can tell when you're on edge. They can tell when you're not comfortable. They can tell when you're nervous. And as much as you can go into an interview confident and in control, that will definitely help you so much. Nerves can be a killer. And for somebody who's interviewing somebody, when someone's extremely nervous, I don't want to have to spend the whole time trying to set the energy and set the tone of the interview, right? It's very hard. People are empathetic and people understand that it can be a little nerve-wracking, but you don't want that to become distracting for you. So whatever you have to do beforehand to really be in your zone, to get confident, make sure you're doing it. If it's virtual, make sure you're in a place that's very sunny. Make sure you like how you look in the reflection, like maybe dress up, stand up, whatever you have to do just to get in that zone. And if you're in person, make sure you give yourself enough time. You don't want to be running to an interview late and then the whole time you're thinking, oh my God, I'm late. I wasted this person's time, and that's on your mind. You want to go into the interview really just focused on what you're there to do and how you're there to showcase and really showcase who you are and why you're the best person for this position. And that's also connected to number 8, which is dress and groom appropriately. You want to be memorable visually as well. I say that, and I'm not trying to say that looks are the thing that will get you a job. They definitely are not. But being memorable and feeling and looking good is important. When you feel good for an interview, you are going to perform a lot better than if you aren't really at your best. And just putting on a nice outfit, maybe putting on some lip gloss, making sure you're groomed, making sure there's enough lighting, whatever your situation is, just making sure when you look back at your reflection, when you pass a mirror, you feel like a boss. That can make or break an interview. And you also want to make sure you're memorable. Like, people want to, you paying attention to how you look in those small details helps that person on the other end know that, okay, they care about how they look. They're coming in professionally. They are, have a flair to them, their own creative style, personal style. I mean, it doesn't always matter, but I do think that it helps you stand out if you can, right? How can you stand out is always going to be a key thing. So here's one that actually came from my original 10 Ways to Rock Your interview. And I thought it was I'm going to actually kind of read it word for word, because I thought it was a good one. And I haven't really thought about it in this way. Don't lie, but you can be imaginative. So this is what I said. We all freeze up sometimes. I once asked a prospective student I was interviewing for an admissions interview the question, if you could go back in time and ask anyone anything, who would you pick and what would you ask them? I must have scared the life out of this girl because she looked terrified. And I wasn't expecting for her to take the question so seriously. And I was worried, right? I basically wanted to get a better sense for her imagination and thought process. She eventually answered that she'd want to ask Velma from Scooby-Doo about her mystery solving skills. And to me, I thought great answer. However, she probably thought it was a weird question. Sometimes interviewers will ask you things to throw you off, right? They want to know, and they're testing your problem solving abilities, your response to pressure, and your communication skills. So instead of thinking about being right, thinking about being creative and coming up with an answer. And if there's ever questions that you don't truly know the answer to, you can say, I don't know the answer. That gives you yourself a little bit of time. Maybe ask them to reframe it, if anything. But I think when you come off at like interviewers, don't necessarily need to know if something is 100% the truth, right? Like, if you can't think of an answer to a question, maybe make one up, but make sure it's in the context of what the question is being asked, and make sure you have it makes sense, right? So I don't know if that student that I was interviewing, if that was really what she thought, but she eventually had to come up with an answer, and it was imaginative. It was a little funny. It was a little quirky. It told me a little bit more about herself and her interests. And so that was just a little example of something that you can do if you're ever in that situation. So number 10, ask the right question when it's your time. So a lot of interviews will end with, hey, do you have any questions for me? And when people say, nope, bye, automatic red flag. Always make sure you have questions. And this is also a part of the interview that you can bank those questions. You can always have a set of questions that you ask every interview where, and here are some sample ones that I like to ask. Like, is there anything about my resume that you'd like me to explain? This is a good one because sometimes interviewers will have questions about the resume, or will, there might be something that they are not necessarily liking or need some clarity on, and they don't always ask. But by you calling it out, it helps you now be able to advocate for yourself. And you can say, hey, I know that you see this. Here's a gap. You didn't ask me about this gap in my resume, but I wanted to explain it to you. What do you deem as a necessary or successful fit for this role? That's another way for the interviewer, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's the hiring manager, whether it's the person who you'll be reporting to talk about what they define as success. Now, I always say interviews are run both ways. Their answer to this question help make or break if this is even the right fit for you. So don't be afraid to also interview the person that you're interviewing with, and to ask some hard questions like, what do you like the best about this job? What's your least favorite part? What's work culture like? What is the opportunity for growth like on this team? Who's someone you admire at this company? I think those type of questions are smart, and they also help both interviewer and interviewee kind of get a feel for each other a little better. And like I said, it goes back to being prepared, making sure that I know that you're taking this seriously and that you've considered more about the company. Those questions, people who have questions at the end of interviews, I'm telling you, that's also another way for me to remember you and to know that you're a problem solver and that you have these basic skill requirements that the company may be looking for. 11, this is the last one, because I think sometimes within this newly digital world, not newly digital, but even more digital than the past, post-pandemic digital world, send a thank you note. I cannot tell you how many times I have done interviews for like paid positions and people have not sent thank you notes. I think that it's in poor taste. You can always send something very simple via email. You don't necessarily have to do those in-person ones. Maybe it's even a quick message. Whatever it is, make sure you are sending a thank you. Someone just took the time to interview for something that you wanted. Having that gratitude goes a long way. It's also a great way for you, like I said, to be memorable. And number 2, it's also a great way now to set up a line of communication for following up that is genuine. So if you sent a thank you note to me and then 2 weeks later you haven't heard from me and you want to follow up again, it makes sense. It seems genuine. It's not just out of the blue. This is also a great way for you to say, thank you. Can you please tell me about the next steps in the interview process? That could have been something that you asked during the questions, but if you didn't ask it, that thank you note is also a great way to just keep the communication flows going until somebody shuts it down, whether you're hired, whether you're not, whether you didn't make it to the next round. So important. And also, it's a great way never to burn bridges, whether or not you thought that interview went well or not, whether that person immediately said, hey, you're not a good fit for the role, or whatever it is, send a thank you, connect with that person on LinkedIn and keep it moving. Because at the end of the day, connections are and relationships and networks are what are going to help you get that position that you want. Hope you enjoyed these. I'll quickly go down the line again of the core things that I talked about. And if you really enjoy this, Please make sure that you're sending it to someone in your network. This is the type of content I want to make more of, because I know a lot of us dream drivers are in these spaces where we're trying to figure this stuff out. So here's a quick rundown. Once again, number 1, make sure your intro is in point. Have your elevator pitch ready to go. Make sure that it's making sense within the context of the interview. Number 2, make sure you have a positive social media, online, professional, internet presence. Number 3, practice answers to scenario-based and personality-based questions or questions that come up over again in interviews. Practicing is important, especially if you're somebody who does not do interviewing good on the fly. Number 4, do your research about the position and or company. That was not number 4. That was number 4. This is number 5. Let your personality shine. Don't be afraid to ever let your truth shine as well. Number 6, nail that sample project even if you don't 100% know what you're doing. Number 7, relax. Number 8, dress and groom appropriately. You want to be memorable visually, and you also want to feel confident, and looking good can help you do that. Number 9, don't lie, but you can be imaginative and creative. Number 10, ask the right questions at the end of the interview or when it's time. And number 11, always send a thank you note. They go a long way. Hopefully these tips were helpful for you all. Definitely, you don't have to listen to all of them. You can listen to some of them. Maybe also things that I did not get to address on this. So definitely, if you have more questions, if you want to be even more prepared, I encourage you to go out and find resources about interviewing, about mastering yourself, about talking about yourself, getting comfortable with who you are and how to make sure you're articulating that clearly to other people is going to be the key to success in a lot of these interviews. Now, there's a lot of other factors that you have no control over about whether a company's trying to hire internally or externally, whether they're looking for a certain type of fit, a certain type of background. Hopefully, if you get to that interview process, you have already been screened out for a lot of things. So just go into the interview trying to show up as your best self while also being strategic and always thinking about how is what I'm saying helping the person that I'm interviewing with, helping them make their decision to bring me back or to hire me that much better. Just always have that in the back of your head. Don't get too overconsumed with it. At the end of the day, people will work with people who they like, who they think will be impressive, and that's always what you want to be able to explain and articulate with whatever type of interviewing situation you're in. Will you be able to do the job, and how will you do it? Once again, guys, thanks again for coming to the end of this interview. I want to do more of these type of content. I want to just kind of niche down and give you guys some real life tips that I think can be helpful no matter what your situation is. Like this episode, please share it with a friend. Please make sure that you're following us on social media. We are Dreams and Drive everywhere. If you ever have an idea for a show, you can always pitch dreamsanddrive.com/pitch, or you can send me an email, Rana@dreamsanddrive.com. Keep dreaming, keep driving, and we'll chat again in the next episode. Bye, guys.